Um, cool. So, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. We're super happy to be back. It seems like it's been too long. Before we get too far into it, I just want to make you aware. Mike Weller had sent an email out about some youth fire setting classes that they started out at the National Fire Academy. They're doing the second class right now. It's a 6-day course. And then they're doing, I think it's 5 courses in the next 6 months. So if you have not taken a class there, if you have not taken Youth Fire Setting Intervention class, please sign up. We'll make sure to send that link out so everybody can see it. But it's a great opportunity. I mean, the National Fire Academy, I can't say enough about it. I love it so much. And then this class looks so good. I'm going to try to sign up for it if I can talk my chief into it. Or you could just go rogue and sign up anyway. So I just want to introduce Robert and he'll be able to give you a lot of information about himself. But personally, Robert's been a great mentor to me. He's helped me out through so many things. He's a great investigator. He's just really good with people, and he's got a good demeanor too. So, Robert?
All right. Well, since you said all those things, I guess I should leave now and leave it on a good note. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am very honored to be able to share some information with you today. I want to thank Scott for inviting me. I think the next 45 minutes to an hour of discussion are going to be fun. I hope to be able to share some insight and some knowledge about interviewing youth. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can do 2 things. You can either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can send the questions to Scott in the chat, and that way Scott can just alert me that there's a question there. I have a couple of open screens, and I don't always see when the hands show up on the monitor, so that way Scott helps me. And if we don't get to your question, we'll go back and review them. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share a screen. Okay. So let's see. Let's do that one. Okay. Can everyone see that screen? Scott, is that showing up properly?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. All right. So if at any time we have a technical issue, again, somebody just let me know. So today's presentation is going to be on interviewing youth. Okay. I put a subtitle there, a fire investigator's approach. That's what I did. When I interview people, for the most part, it was always from the law enforcement side or as a fire investigator. Okay. I was telling Scott, I share a picture, and I now live in Florida because I'm retired. So I thought it would be proper to share some kind of citrus. And I was telling Scott a couple of months ago, it's funny, every time I go shopping, all the fruit that I'm finding is from California, which is kind of funny. Anyhow, all right. So a little bit, not that I want to say too much about myself, but I want to give you my contact information right from the beginning. Okay. You have a phone number and you have an email there. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to continue the conversation after we are done today, please feel free to reach out. And if there's something that you didn't want to discuss in the group, or you think about it later. So there's my information, and I'll make that available via Scott if you don't catch it during the presentation. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so what we want to do today, the objective today, is to familiarize you, the student, with an approach to how to interview youth. Okay, I say an approach because this is not the only way to do it. This is something that I've worked on, that I've researched, that I've done. I've also learned a lot from others who interview minors in various settings, and I'll share that information with you. Again, it's a fire investigator's approach. So we are in this particular case or this approach, we're talking about a fire setting scenario, okay? But the questions and the approach can apply to other scenarios. And also, one of the main things that we want to do, we want to get the information that we want, but we also want to do it in a way that we are not causing harm, meaning you don't want to interview someone and cause a traumatic event, okay? We're talking about minors, we're talking about youth. So you want to make sure that you're professional in your approach, that you're asking the right things, and that you're not creating a bigger problem. Okay? As we know, investigators, law enforcement is a very scrutinized field. Okay, so if you're conducting an investigation, you want to make sure that you do everything proper. You don't create something that can be misconstrued or can make a situation worse. The main thing, or one of the main questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves is, what is an interview? Okay? Basically, it's an interview. An interview is trying to get information. Okay. In this particular case, it's something that we need for our investigation. Okay? A lot of times when we conduct an interview, that might be the only chance that we get to get information about a case. It might be that you're unfamiliar, meaning you cannot get to the actual scene. Okay. So you can only get information by interviewing someone. It might be that you're doing this a couple of days later. Okay. So the interview is a very important part of an investigation. Okay. Unfortunately, sometimes you only get one chance at an interview, and if you haven't been trained or if you haven't been practicing, you might not get all the details or all the facts that you need. I was reading an article from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and the article referred to how poorly law enforcement officers, law enforcement investigators have been trained in the art of interviewing youth. Okay, so it's something that you want to practice, that you want to read up on. Okay, an interview is very different than an interrogation because the way you approach it. An interview is kind of I don't want to call it low key, but it's a easier approach. You are soliciting information, you're just getting that information, you're looking for facts. Whereas interrogation is you believe the person is not guilty necessarily, but may have committed a crime, may have information that they don't want to, they're reluctant to give it up. Okay, an interrogation is already sort of a accusatory approach. Okay, and I say here it's custodial, and we're going to talk about in custody versus not in custody. Okay? But usually an interrogation is custodial. You're accusing someone of doing something. That is not what we're going to talk about today. We're mainly going to talk about interviews. Okay. So, Scott, did I see you making a comment? Did we have any questions so far?
No, not yet.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right. So the first thing, why do we interview? Why do we need to interview someone? And as I mentioned a minute ago, we need to get facts. We need to get some information. Okay. The main reason why you're going to sit with someone, whether it's at a scene or an interview after the fact, or even an interview over the phone, which I prefer not to do, but you're trying to uncover facts, right? The person is going to give you information that you probably did not have, that you were probably not aware of, and you're going to build a case, or you're going to add this information to something else. The way that you go about discovering those facts or getting those facts is going to have an impact on the way you carry your investigation forward later. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you gather facts in a way that is not legal or it's inappropriate, okay, it could be thrown out. And I'm going to describe that a little bit more here in a minute. Okay, but again, the main purpose: gather facts. Okay. One of the questions that I was asking Scott when we decided, or he asked about presenting this class, is who are we going to interview, right? Because sometimes as an officer, I may approach someone thinking that he or she is a suspect. But we're not always just interviewing suspects, right? Especially when it comes to a fire scene. You may have suspects, but you may have victims and you may have witnesses. Okay. Uh, when we're talking about youth, the way that you interview the person is probably going to follow the same format, right? Because there are certain things that we need to establish that we're going to get into in the next 45 minutes. Uh, but you need to know, obviously, who are we looking at? Are we looking at someone that may have committed the act, someone that saw the act, or someone that has been affected by the act? Um, and that obviously affects how you ask the questions. Okay, that's also going to affect the timing of the questions, the location of the questions, and how you present that information and going forward. Okay? So the who are we interviewing is a big thing. Now, it has happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to many of you that conduct an interview. You start interview someone believing that they are a witness and they are somehow involved, right? So you have to kind of change focus on the interview. You may be interviewing someone who you believe is a victim, and perhaps that's not the case. Okay? Going back to a witness, this happens with adults and it happens with youth. They might tell you they're a witness, and you come to realize during the interview process that they heard about something that happened. It did not. There were not eyewitnesses. They were not present at the time. They arrived after the fact, or they heard from a friend. This is particularly common with minors who start talking to each other and then give you information as if they were there. So you need to establish that very early on. Okay, so who we are interviewing is a very important fact, and you want to establish that as early as possible. Okay. So let's get into, once we know who we're going to interview, this is a big portion here about what is the subject's mental state. And I use the phrase mental state, but really, what is their level of competency, okay? And when interviewing minors, this is a big deal, okay? The reason is, as you can probably imagine, a minor is anyone under 18. Well, if you're interviewing someone who's 17, their way of expressing themselves, their vocabulary, their way of analyzing things is going to be completely different from someone 6, 7, 8 years old. Okay, so you need to establish how competent they are in order to provide you the information that you need. When I was a police officer and I was not doing fire investigations and I was just doing regular patrol calls, we had a very somewhat simple approach to establishing competency of minors. We would ask a number of basic questions, especially if they were very young, just to see if they understood what we were trying to tell them. And we would do something as simple as, if I show you a piece of paper, right, I would show them a piece of paper, and let's say it was a white piece of paper, and I would ask the kid, is this, if I told you this is white, would that be true or would that be a lie? Right? Again, we're trying to determine whether they know what a lie or whether a falsehood is. You would ask them their name, their address. You would ask basic questions to determine if the child is going to be able to provide you with information that you're going to be able to take as facts. I have a couple of forms, a couple of templates here that I'm going to work through, and there are going to be some sample questions that are going to assist us in determining the competency level of a minor, of a youth, so that we can go forward with the investigation, understanding that they are capable of presenting the information that we need. And we also want to discuss their level of understanding. We want to, if you're talking about a crime, for example, in the interview, we want to know if they understand that what we're talking about is illegal, it's inappropriate, it's incorrect, right? And again, this doesn't just apply to fire investigations, it can apply to a number of different situations, but you want to see if the child understands the action, especially if you're talking to a child that you suspect of committing a crime, You want to know what his or her background is and if they understand what they're doing. Now, I should have said this at the beginning. I am not an attorney. I am not giving legal advice. And many states across the country, and I'm sure other countries as well, have different understandings of what age, at what age a child can provide this information. I was just doing some brief research, and in some states, although the age of majority is 18, they cannot be held responsible for an act at a particular age, whether it's 14, whether it's 12, or whether it's a full 18 years old. Okay, so you want to make sure that you review your jurisdiction's laws and talk to your district attorneys or other legal personnel to determine that. But when you're conducting that interview, you want to ask questions to assess what is their level of understanding. And again, we're going to have a template that's going to help that. And then in the case of a suspect, you want to understand, or you want him or her to understand what Miranda is. As most of us know, Miranda is the set of rights that are read to a suspect when you're conducting an in-custody interview. Okay? The questions that are asked are sometimes even difficult for an adult to understand. Okay? The concepts of you have the right to have an attorney present during any questioning. There are adults who might not even understand that. So you can assume that a minor might not understand what you're talking about. I once read Miranda rights to an adult, and when I explained to the person that he had the right to remain silent, he wouldn't talk to me. Not that he wouldn't talk to me about the issue, he just wouldn't talk to me, thinking that I was telling him that he needed to be quiet. Okay, so, and this was an adult who understood the language that I was speaking to him, but the legal concepts, some people just do not understand. I am going to give you some resources for explanations of Miranda for youth, okay? And that way you can go through and read Miranda or explain Miranda to a person who you're reading the rights to. Okay. When we're interviewing youth, okay, the time, the length, okay, when we do these things is extremely important. If you are of the mindset that you like to do things first thing in the morning and you want to go interview a minor at 6 a.m. because that's when you feel the most productive, or that's when you have time, or that's before you go into your shift, whatever the situation is, okay? The courts do not really appreciate that you are disrupting a child's normal schedule, okay, in order for you to conduct an interview, okay? Whether it's a suspect or a witness or anything, okay? So all things being equal, you want to make sure that the time that you approach a child or a minor to be interviewed is an appropriate time. What is an appropriate time? It all depends, right? But take a look at the situation. Take a look at is that person's family setting such that they do not get up until 9 a.m. Okay. What is the normal daytime operating hours, if you would, for that family? What time is the kid in school? Can you wait until the kid gets out of class? So you want to do some homework as to what the appropriate time of day is to interview someone. If you're going to the person's school, the kid's school, then there's probably no preferred time unless maybe during lunch or something like that. Okay, so you want to do your homework, right? Time also affects in relation to an event. If you're interviewing a victim or a witness, maybe it has to be immediately after an event when you have a chance. Maybe you're responding to a scene, and that's the time when you can access the person on their way to the hospital. I've conducted many interviews on the way to the hospital right before they get in the ambulance. Okay, that is very close to the event, but maybe that's the only time, the only chance. Especially if someone has injuries that you may not be able to talk to them later for some time. Okay, so again, keep this in mind. If you have control over the time of the day and in relation to the event, plan accordingly. If it's something that you cannot, then it's something out of your control. Okay. And the length of the questioning is very important. There are cases where judges have dismissed or frowned upon the investigation because of the length of time that a youth has been questioned. Okay? I read a case and they had a child of about 12 years old, I believe, and he was questioned for 4 hours. I'm sorry, in excess of 4 hours. Probably inappropriate. Okay, you want to assess the situation. You want to see, and you can tell, right? You've talked to youth. You can tell when things are not going quite the way they should. Okay, so I don't think I've ever held an interview with a minor for more than an hour. But I was not I was a fire investigator. I was not a homicide detective. I was not a child abuse investigator. So I'm sure there are times when the interviews have to go longer, but you want to just keep that in mind. What are the appropriate breaks? When has this kid arrived at a time when he or she is no longer able to answer appropriately and is now just scared or tired? Okay. Having said that, I think I was going to talk about it later, but having a parent in the room when you're talking to a youth is appropriate. It used to be that you didn't want anybody around, that you just wanted to talk to the kid. But the literature now explains that having someone, they call it a friendly adult, someone who the youth is familiar with, that's probably a good idea. Okay? If the youth has someone in the room that they feel comfortable with, maybe they'll be able to talk to you a little longer. They'll be able to talk to you, at a time when it's too close to the event or something like that. Okay, so the time of when you're interviewing the minor is very, very important. You want to keep that in mind. Okay, and then I kind of mentioned this quickly, but where are you going to interview the kid, the minor? The where is not only important because of custody issues, but also of how comfortable the person you're interviewing is. If you go to a youth home, probably they will be comfortable there as long as the situation that you're asking does not relate to the home life. Again, from the fire investigation perspective, that's usually not the case, but I can see in other scenarios. But from a fire investigation perspective, going to interview at home or in school is probably a comfortable place for that child. Having a teacher or a parent present or nearby is probably a comfortable situation where they'll feel that they can answer your questions. Okay? The where is extremely important, and you're going to document all these things in your report. And again, we're going to go over a couple of templates to show that. Okay? The location is extremely important. If you interview someone, a youth, at headquarters, at police headquarters, in a small room with a camera, that's definitely going to change the setting, okay, and it's going to change the impact of your interview and the answers that the person is going to give you. If you're outside, out in the open, it's probably going to be a different feeling for that person. So you want to pick the location as well as you can. Okay. Let me talk a little bit about custody and out of custody here, because the location of where you ask the interview is affected by that, or could affect how someone sees themselves. Normally, an in-custody interview for an adult is considered to be somewhere where the person does not feel that he or she has the right to leave. Okay, so again, let's talk about adults for a moment. Okay? If I have a 20-year-old and I put him in the back of my patrol car and I close the doors, I just roll the windows and I start asking him questions, he is probably, and rightly so, considered to be in custody. especially if he's handcuffed, he's now in a position where he cannot leave. He is in custody, even if I haven't told him that he's under arrest. Okay? So in custody refers to a place, a physical place, where the person does not feel that they have the right to walk away. They don't have the freedom. Okay? Now, if we are outside my patrol car, he is not handcuffed. He's just leaning against my car, and I'm asking him questions. Okay? As long as I'm not accusing him or making him feel that he cannot stay there, he is not in custody, so I can interview him. In custody, under arrest, in a place that he cannot leave. When you're dealing with an adult, this is somewhat easy to explain, right? I can tell the 20-year-old, sir, you're not under arrest. You can leave at any time. I just want to talk to you. He probably understands me. If I'm talking to a minor, to someone who's under 18 years of age, he or she may or may not understand that they're not in custody. I might be wearing a uniform. I have all my gear. I'm probably bigger and taller than the person I'm interviewing. And they might feel just by my command presence that they are in no position to leave. That creates an in custody scenario. In custody scenario requires Miranda warning. Okay. So again, a number of legal issues are raised if you're talking to someone, if you're interviewing someone in a particular location. Okay? So you always want to ask yourself, okay, does this person feel that they are in custody? If the answer should be yes, then you have to Mirandize the person. If you're just interviewing someone to get information, again, we're talking about suspects. If you just want to interview someone without Mirandizing or without having an attorney present, as the law in California now requires, then you want to make sure that it's not in custody. Because most of us are not legal scholars and because things change so frequently, you want to be very, very careful when you're interviewing a minor, and you want to prepare and ask yourself several questions before you start interviewing, especially a suspect. Okay? Now, as in every interview, preparation is going to be key, right? We already talked about who are we interviewing, where are we doing it, when are we doing it, okay? Now I need to prepare myself with whatever information I need in order to start my interview, okay? Scott, did I see you raising your hand?
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I was
all
just
right.
letting someone in.
Okay, maybe you were stretching. All right. So let's talk about preparation for the interview. Okay. I was a police officer in California, so I am more familiar with California laws. Again, check your particular jurisdiction, your particular laws, and even in California, things are changing drastically often. So what laws are applicable? I talked about in custody, out of custody. Again, if you talk to experienced investigators, they will tell you many ways that they can talk to someone without them feeling that they are in custody, and therefore they don't have to Mirandize. If you're asking yourself, why don't you want to Mirandize someone right away? Well, because the moment you start asking someone questions and you Mirandize them, they can just invoke certain rights that they have. For example, have an attorney present, and your interview is over, and then certain other things apply. So a lot of investigators, and it's legal and it's proper, okay, will try not to have someone in custody before they start asking questions. So again, check what laws are applicable. On your slide here, you see that in California, I think it's California Welfare Institutions Code 625.6, which just became effective about 6 or 7 months ago, okay? California requires that any youth, and that's anyone 17 or younger, has the right or needs to, is required to consult with an attorney prior to an in-custody interview, okay? So you have a couple of key things here prior to in-custody interview, okay? If they're not in custody and you're just asking a question, that's not a custodial arrest, that's not a custodial question interview, so they don't have to, okay? But because you're dealing with youth, how did they feel? Did they feel they had the freedom to walk away? And we cannot answer that right away just when you're talking to them. Okay, so you want to be extremely careful. There are a couple of exceptions to this rule. Again, I repeat myself, in custody or not in custody is one, but also the imminent threat. If you are a fire or bomb, fire or explosion investigator, and you show up at a place and a bomb just went off, and they believe someone under 17 committed the crime, they have them, the teacher grabbed them, and you go and you start asking questions about where's the bomb, are there any more? What did you put out there? Anything like that, that is not going to fall under a violation because there's an imminent threat, right? That other people are going to be injured if you don't ask this information right away. Still have to be careful, but there is an exception to asking questions outside in custody, outside of Miranda. Okay, so let's get a little bit more into the actual process of the interview. Okay, and what I've done here, okay, on the next couple of slides, I have some samples. A lot of you probably do fire investigations as well. And everything that we talk about in fire investigations is about a systematic approach, right? And if you're systematic in your investigation, it doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect, but you're going to get practice at doing something the same way every time. And I read a book a while ago about checklists and how doctors use checklists, pilots use checklists, and having a checklist is such a great part of doing something, helps you be systematic, even if you've done something many times before. A checklist will just help you kind of stay on track. And here I have a couple of checklists. This is from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Okay, these are available to you. I sent Scott a PDF this morning, and Scott, maybe if you can make that available to others who are present today, that would be great. But I'm also going to give the website for reference at the end. Okay, so you see on your screen now, I'm not going to go over every single blank here, okay? But it's simply a checklist that you can customize to your needs, okay? And it talks about the case that you're working, right? So I mentioned earlier, prepare yourself, know what information you need to get. This is a checklist that you should complete before you talk to the person that you're interviewing, okay? It has, all the pertinent information, who the person lives with, have they been notified, etc. Towards the end, actually, it asks, is this interview custodial, okay? And yes or no, okay? And then it talks about Miranda, whether it's required or not. And I explained a minute ago that if it's not an in-custody interview, then you don't have to provide Miranda warnings. There is another checklist, another resource that breaks down Miranda for a minor, so I'll have that as well. Okay. And it talks, so the checklist just goes through a number of things. Okay. It talks about local considerations. What is the age of majority? Again, different jurisdictions have different ages. Okay. Who was present during the interview? Okay. Did you have a note taker? Did the person write a report or statement for you? Okay. And who did the statement come from, if not from the suspect, from someone else? Okay. Did they get an attorney? Okay. So this particular checklist, very useful. Very good at kind of reminding you what information you need to have. Again, even if you've done something many times, for whatever reason, you might forget a step or you might go out of sequence. By having a checklist, you can just go through and make sure that you have all the information that you're going to need. Okay, and then you also have on the next slide, you have a sample interview plan. Again, this is thanks to the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Okay. The first page on your left side, it talks about who the interviewer is and who you're going to interview and the victims and all that. Okay, that one is kind of basic. The other side, the right side, I really like it. That one, you should complete definitely before you talk to the person. Okay. And it reminds you what evidence do you have in this particular scenario. Okay. What are you missing? A lot of times, you may have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle already put together, right? Perhaps this is the fifth interview that you conduct in this case. And it's good to just kind of remind yourself, I have A, B, and C. I am missing D and E. Maybe I'm missing the name of the person that was wearing the black pants. Okay, and I need to find that. Okay, and what are your goals for the interview? What are you looking to learn? I mentioned that at the beginning. Why are we interviewing this person? We need to get facts. Okay, this is kind of a reminder for yourself. Okay? And it talks also about a strategy for rapport building. Um, I've always found that rapport building is sort of customized, meaning I don't know that you can necessarily create a strategy before you go talk to someone. However, okay, the more you know about the person that you're going to talk to, the more you know about where does the minor live, where does the youth go to school, what are his or her likes as far as sports or music. You know, now you have something going in that you can allow yourself to employ to build rapport. So this is a good reminder. Again, we all have very busy lives, right? But if we take a couple of minutes before an interview to just make some notes to help ourselves when we go in there, you're going to be better prepared. Okay. All right. This is another page on that questionnaire. Okay. And I like it because obviously the what do you want to know is always in the front of your mind, but how are you going to close, right? What if you get to where you need to get to, if you find the information that you're going after, okay, do you just get up and leave? Are you going to come back and talk to this kid, to this young person? You know, you want to sort of make a plan for yourself as to how you're going to not only approach, but also how you're going to exit. How you want to leave the interview on a good note, and also with the understanding that perhaps you need to come back. So you want the youth and his or her parent representative to just have an understanding that that may happen. Okay? Um, this particular template talks about things to remember. Okay, again, that could be a number of things in your interview, in your incident. Okay, but a very important one is the last one: the items for follow-up or corroboration. Like I mentioned, maybe this is the fifth person that you already talked to. If 1 through 4 gave you pieces of information that you need to kind of fill in the gaps, you want to remind yourself. I think all of us have found ourselves in an interview where we start talking and you check your notes and you're going through and you think you got everything, and then you walk away and you realize that you forgot to ask a particular piece of information. So you want to be able to have that in your notes and go through it. By the way, these templates, what I like to do, I make packets. I customize. I have different templates for my investigations, and I'll make a packet and I'll just make copies of that, and I just have them with a binder in my bag, in my go bag, so that when I get to the scene, I just take them out and I start filling it out. I've seen some people also laminate them and then use sort of a Sharpie or something to go over so they can be reused. Some people just go straight into the computer and pull up a new one every time. Whatever works for you, again, just have it handy, right? It's just like my other class, evidence photography. The best camera to have is the one that you have with you. So the best template is the one that you're going to use that you have available. Okay. Earlier, I talked about how do you determine that a person is competent to answer questions that you have about your interview. I'm sorry, about your scene, your investigation. As we all know, not all youths are the same, right? You can have a 16-year-old that's very street savvy and knows a lot about what's going on, and he or she is able to just talk to you and give you all the information that you need, and you feel confident that you have a good exchange of information going. But you might be talking to someone who is not that way. Okay, how do I explain that? How do I put that in my narrative to explain to the person that reads my report what I was going through and how I felt that this person was not competent to answer my questions? Well, here you have some sample questions that you can ask. And again, by having this checklist, you don't have to remember all of them, and you don't have to ask all of the questions that are on here, right? Um, but there's some very good ones. At the beginning, they talk about primary language. Obviously, if language is an issue, then you're not going to be able to communicate properly with that person. Okay. Did you have an interpreter? Who brought the interpreter? A lot of times we don't bring interpreters with us, and we're using someone from the household. That could be an issue. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are as prepared as you can, so that you can bring the proper resources with you. But if you go through the questions, and you can do that at your leisure, questions to the minor about what grade are you in? What is your phone number? What are you studying? I am still amazed at the number of youth that I've talked to during my career who did not know their address. Okay, and these were kids that you would expect to know their full address. For whatever reason, they did not know their full address. They did not know their doctor's name, or they did not know their parents' phone number. Especially nowadays, all of us with smartphones, right? We don't remember numbers. But you want to just ask these questions so you get an idea, and not only yourself, but if this case goes forward to court, okay, so that you can present your findings as to how you determined that the person was competent to answer your questions. On the page on the right, on number 3 and 4 and 5, it talks about doing the right thing or the wrong thing, which kind of goes back to what I was asking earlier, if they knew the difference between a lie and the truth. Okay, and you want to establish that as early as possible, so that you can have a common ground when you're talking about the topic, the investigation. Okay, so the one on the right has a number of different questions. Okay, again, you don't have to use these. These are just ideas, right? You can combine them. You can create your own that would apply best to your particular jurisdiction, and also your experience. You know, the type of youth that you have been dealing with, and how it would be better to address them. One point that I want to talk about real quick. I worked in the city of Sunnyvale in Northern California, and many times during my patrol days, I had to deal with kids that were involved in gangs. And I thought I was savvy enough to be able to have a conversation with them, ask them questions. And many times, kids 12, 13 years old would give me answers that I did not understand. Not because the language was different, but because the colloquialisms that they gave me, I guess I was not hip enough to understand. I'm not going to bring examples here because some of them were offensive. But the things they said, I didn't understand what they were talking about. Okay, do not feel uncomfortable. You need to ask, what do you mean by whatever it is? That's when you start realizing, like me, that you're getting old. Okay, but at least in communication, you're gonna know exactly what he or she meant. If they said, "I did this," don't assume that you understand what that word means if it doesn't make sense to you. Quick example. I talked to a kid, and he said that he got in trouble for banking on someone. Okay, I asked him right away, because banking on someone did not make sense to me at the time, and it was kicking the person, right? They're down in the gutter, and they're just putting the boots to him, and he explained in more detail what they were doing. But banking in this case was just beating on someone. So you want to make sure that you ask questions and you understand the language that they're using. Okay? Let's talk about report. Okay, Scott, am I going too fast? Are we good? Did I lose anyone?
No, I think you're doing really good.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about report. And I mentioned that the more information that you have, the more details that you can bring, is going to help you establish report. I don't know if you can call that a strategy. Okay, it's just having the info, just knowing, right? But making observations, right? Just asking questions. And what I mean by asking the right questions, just be an honest person, right? Kids could be kids, you know, the youth can be the youth, but they're gonna see through you. They're going to understand that you're just not interested. You're just trying to make small talk so you can ask questions. So just be honest in asking questions. If you're talking about a music band or a sports team or something like that, just be honest with yourself about what you're asking and be empathetic, right? We don't have a lot of that, unfortunately, around the world nowadays. So just be empathetic, and it's going to be appreciated. Okay, and avoid deception. Avoiding deception is a big one. I was a police officer for 19 years, and I can tell you that yes, police officers are allowed to lie to people. Okay, if we're asking questions and we are conducting an interview, I can say, yeah, we talked to the neighbor down the street, and he saw you. Okay, in small amounts, you're dealing with adults, so you expect or it is believed that they're going to understand the communication. That is not allowed. That is not done when talking to minors. You don't want to promise them anything. You don't want to lie to them. You don't want to tell them what's going to happen if that's not true. Okay, you want to avoid any signs of deception. And that's how you establish rapport as well, because they're going to be able to tell that you're being honest with them. Okay, maybe not right away, but definitely by the next time that you talk to them. So you want to just not lie. You want to just say exactly what's going on and give them the information that you have. You want to, when you talk to them, okay, now we're getting into the actual interview process. When you talk to a youth, you want to ask open-ended questions. Okay, you do not want to put information in their minds to give back to you. You want to just, like in my example here, what did you do last night? And let them tell you. Okay. Your interview style might be different than mine. I like to let people talk first, okay, even when I'm asking questions, all right? And then I'll go back and ask questions. I won't stop them when they're telling me. I'll just kind of go back, okay? You want to ask open-ended questions that are targeted. If they tell you, my friend and I were walking down Main Street and we made a left, okay? You can go back and say, okay, you were walking down Main Street and made a left. Did you turn anywhere else? Did you see anything? Then you can ask the question that you have, okay? You can ask them to expand, but you don't want to put information there that they haven't given you, okay? You want to ask direct questions, but you don't want to turn this into an interrogation, right? So you don't want to accuse them of anything, okay? It's always good when you ask people to help you understand something, okay? So explain this to me. Why did you run from the location? Why did you turn that way? And let them explain, okay? Always use the who, what, when, where, how, okay? I didn't put why there because the why might not be something they can answer, okay? But everything else, they should be able to. Okay? So you want to ask open-ended questions, and you want to listen to what they're saying. Okay? I'm going to repeat this in documentation, but you should be recording your interview, okay? I mentioned that I let people talk, and then I take notes. I ask them questions again, but I also have a recording, so I can refer to it in case I miss something, or in case that later it is said that I said something that wasn't true. Okay, so you always want to have a recording. Okay? Now the questions that you don't. Okay. By the way, that's one of my dogs there. I thought that was a funny picture, and it just kind of showed up when I was putting everything together. So that's Kiki, and so anyway, I thought about putting that in there, and hopefully, break up the monotony of just information. Anyhow, the questions that you don't offer alternative options, right? If you're asking questions of the person you're interviewing, okay, don't say this, don't ask this or that, okay, because there might be a third option that you're not thinking about. Okay, do not say, was she wearing a blue dress or a green dress, right? The kid might think it was, teal. Well, that's not blue or green, according to some people. So they might just give you something or say no, right? So you just want to leave, as we said earlier, open-ended questions, okay? You don't want to ask leading questions, right? you don't want to put information in their mind, okay? You don't want to offer evidence. There was a case, well, there have been several cases actually, but there was a case I was reading about where a minor, a youth, gave a full confession to a crime that he did not commit because he was pretty much fed the information. He was offered evidence, okay, and then he thought that by confessing that he was just going to be able to go home and that everything was going to be fine, right? Because that was not, he had a misunderstanding of what was going on, and he was given facts that he didn't know about, but he was presented with these facts and he put them together and presented a confession, and then he was found guilty. You do not want to find yourself in that situation. So don't give any facts. Okay? Do not give any evidence. All right. Do not tell a young person, you know, we found the shoe prints belonging to this type of boots. Are those yours? No. Just ask open-ended questions and stay away from, lack of a better word, planting evidence into that person's mind. Okay. It's not going to go well. You don't want to find yourself in a situation like that. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, this is not information. So this is Lucas. This is my other dog, and as you can tell, he's Kiki's big brother. And if he found out that I didn't put him in here, he'll be upset. So, all right, moving on.
Robert,
Yes.
there's a question.
Is it about Lucas?
Well, everyone
no.
loves Lucas, but do you ever get the sense that interviewees may be less than candid if they know they are being recorded, or do you think the fear of getting caught in a lie and having them on tape? So are they in fact more truthful?
So that's a very interesting question. And let me see. So let me answer by saying this first. In California, I didn't have to tell people that they were being recorded. Okay. When I was doing my investigations, my interviews, I didn't have to tell anyone you're being recorded. So I don't know how that affected the person. And most of the time, if we were at headquarters or in a room where the recording system was hidden, that wasn't a big deal. If I was out in the field, I had my recorder in my pocket and I didn't have to tell anyone about it. But there were times that I had it out on the desk, and going back, it didn't seem that it affected. Trying to go back, I don't think it affected the level of honesty in the people that I interviewed. Yeah, so I don't think it does. I think if people are going to lie, they're going to lie regardless, and the recording device did not seem to affect that. I don't have numbers and I don't have a good way of measuring that, but I didn't think that it prevented people from telling me what they believe was the truth. Does that kind of answer the question? I hope I didn't go around it.
So Bob just mentioned in Minnesota, he's obligated to let them know that if he is recording. And then in Nevada is a one-party consent state.
Yeah. Again, that's why at the beginning I mentioned I'm not a lawyer, so check your states or your jurisdictions with what you can or cannot do. I recommend, I highly suggest that you always record interviews with youth. Okay. So whether you have to tell them right away that you're recording them, again, do it legally, right? So whether you can do it without telling them or you have to announce it, regardless how you got to do it, record it. And the reason is, I think you protect yourself and you protect the youth by recording your interview. You record, and not only, if possible, not only record audio, but record video, okay? Because you're going to protect the integrity of that investigation. Again, dealing with youth is so delicate, right? And not only delicate because you can lose information, but also because you can really damage someone or traumatize someone when perhaps it didn't have to be that way. So I recommend you record it. Again, check with your jurisdiction. If it's something that you have to tell them, then tell them. If you feel comfortable not recording your interviews and moving forward that way, that's also fine. I just find that you cover yourself better. Any more questions regarding interviews, Scott, or anything else so far?
No.
Cool. Okay. Let's get into documentation. Okay. So obviously, we're in the business of interviewing people. We're in the business of conducting investigations, and the end product of most of these things is a report. Okay. You need to conduct your interview in a way that you are always thinking, I have to write this. I have to present a detailed narrative about everything that I just did. Okay. And it could be that day. If you're really good and you can write it that same day, that's great. Sometimes it has to be a day later or even at the end of the week. It all depends how things are going, right? So write your narrative so that a person who was not there is able to read and fully understand everything you went through with that young person, right? How did you determine that he or she could understand you? How did you read him his Miranda rights? How did you determine that? How did you establish rapport with her? And it sounds lengthy because it should be. Okay, it sounds like it's a lot of work because it is. Okay, Scott and I had the pleasure of presenting a report writing class last year. Scott, was it? Right? And prior to the class, I asked several fire investigators. I asked everyone actually, but several fire investigators send me copies of their reports. Right? They deleted all the pertinent information. Some of them deleted their names, and then they send me their reports so that we can. And I told them we were just going to discuss them in public, in the class, right? And there were some very, very good reports, and then there were some reports that were 2 pages long when dealing with a 2-alarm fire, right? I don't have to tell you that there wasn't any detail in it, okay? If you give your report to someone who wasn't there and they're familiar with the process, they should be able to recreate the scene, okay? So write it that way. And that's why all these checklists really come in handy, because you may not remember all the details later. You may not be able to record video or audio, but if you take notes and you don't forget to write things because of your checklist, then you're going to be able to go back to your narrative and do a detailed job. Okay, and that's regardless which way you conduct your narrative, which way you present it. Having that level of detail is very important. Okay, we already talked about video and audio recording. I have here a juvenile contact report. In many jurisdictions, my former place of employment, we had juvenile contact reports, or JCRs. Scott, do you use JCRs as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So they're very common in California, and it's really a very short report. So a lot of people think when dealing with youth that all I got to do is complete the JCR and I'm done. And because it's only on 1 page, whatever information doesn't fit in there, it just doesn't fit in there. Well, that's not true, right? You can always attach an attachment. You can always add an attachment to your JCR, but you want to add as much detail as possible. Okay, your narrative is what's going to go forward, even when you're not present. And then I have your referrals. I mentioned that you have to be ready for your interview, but you're not always ready for things that you're not expecting. And I bring that up because years ago I conducted an interview of a youth. He was about 12 years old, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I got called out to a fire that I really thought frontline personnel should have been able to handle. And I got called to interview this 12-year-old at school because he set some leaves on fire. And I just really thought somebody else should have been able to do that. So I show up and I'm talking to him, and I'm really just going through the motions, right? Boom, boom, boom. And I finally asked him at the end, hey, have you ever set any more fires? Have you ever done this before? And I'm really hoping and expecting him to say no. And he says, yes, I have. Okay, how many fires have you set before? And he says, 348. And and I stopped and I looked at him, excuse me? And first I was shocked by the number, and then the fact that he knew what the number was. So of course I asked, how do you know it's 348? And he gave me a very detailed explanation of how he kept track of all his fires, which immediately kind of led me down a path. He had other things going on. I was just a fire investigator. I don't know much about detailed child abuse investigations, but I knew right away that this was above the level that I knew how to deal with. So I had to conduct a referral. I had to get other people involved immediately because I knew there was something else going on that he was trying to express. Okay, so be ready to document in your report who you refer that person to. Okay, I know a lot of you deal with that aspect of it. Okay, so maybe you're receiving the report, but for those of us that do the front end or the investigation in the field, you have to make sure that the person that receives that information has as much as they can, right? And that you document in your report who you're referring to, if you had a chance to speak with someone, and what did you do in order to provide that information. Okay, that's a very important step. Okay.
Can I?
And yes.
I'm sorry, just Joanna had sent something in the text about the difference between cross-state and cross-continental differences in these conversations. Because in the UK, they're not allowed to record the youth. And then also most of the practitioners for the youth fire setting aren't investigators or do the investigative role, but it's more to educate on fires or the danger.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And thank you for the comment about not being able to interview youth in the UK. That I teach a lot in Latin America, and that also seems to be the case there. So, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, not able to interview. I'm talking about record. But going to the comment about the practitioners not investigating. Again, I understand that some of you are not doing fire investigations at the very beginning. Hopefully some of the details about interviews that we're talking about apply throughout any time that you're talking to someone. Again, anytime that you're seeking facts from a youth, you may have, you can apply some of these skills that we're talking about. All right. Any other questions on that, Scott?
No.
Okay, thanks. Okay. And then what I wanted to share here, like I said, you know, there are several resources out there. There are more, but I found these to be very helpful. These are websites and organizations. Some of them, obviously, you're very familiar with. But some websites that have a bunch of resources that are not just for police, for example, in the first one, okay? But they have policies, they have checklists like the ones that I shared with you today. Okay, I'm also sending you that PDF via Scott, okay, so that you can customize some templates for yourself. Again, even if you're not doing frontline fire investigation, a lot of the, I didn't include all of them here, but a lot of the checklists that they have, a lot of the templates deal with the home situation for the person. Who do they live with? And certain things that apply, I would assume, at any point during the interactions with some of our young people. Okay. On the resources, on the last one that I had there are California laws. Okay, regardless where you practice, it's a very interesting website. You can look up any California law, and I provided the one that we were talking about today, 625.6, that deals strictly with the custodial interrogation for youth. And you can see what's before and after that. A lot of times, other jurisdictions just copy from other places, right? So this is a good reference. Regardless how you feel about California laws, you know, it's something that you can use as a reference if you're looking for wording. And I think those are all the notes that I had and everything else that I had to share today. Scott, I hope I didn't go over the allotted time there. Are there any questions or any comments that I can answer?
I've mentioned all the comments that people have typed in, well, and then some have said thank you. A few people had to leave,
Okay.
but I don't see any other questions.
All right.
Hey, Scott, let me get my microphone down here. I just wanted to thank you, Robert. I mean, I'm one of those people who I do not investigate. I am here strictly as an intervention specialist. I'm one of those people that our investigators probably don't like because I have been called to fire scenes before, and I am a child advocate. So the very aggressive investigators don't like me because I'm more worried about the child and the trauma to the child. And I actually encourage my intervention specialists when I teach the class not to go to the fire scene because I want them separate from that trauma. But I appreciate you as, you know, an investigator caring about those children. To actually hear you say you want to make these children comfortable. I really appreciate that because I've ran into the opposite before. And I see Joanna shaking her head yes too.
Thank you.
Definitely. I couldn't echo it more better, Jenny. Forgive me, I'm a little slow because it's 11 o'clock at night here after a day's work. And Robert, what you said, despite the different roles and remits, so much of what you said here, even if we're not investigators, is absolutely fundamental. That structure of who, what, where, when, how is very much how our coroners here investigate sudden deaths. And so that's how we frame our reports here, avoiding the why question. But yes, even though we don't have the same jurisdiction in the UK and wouldn't record, there is so much here that's been valuable. And as Jenny said, to hear somebody who does have that role, to want to not cause trauma, to build a report that's genuine, was just joyful to listen to. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for bringing that comment, Jenny, about different practitioners and different aspects of this process, right? And Scott and I have been working together for a long time, and I think he's seen it. I always believe that as much as possible, us investigators, we should talk to other people involved in, I don't know what the right word, in that life of the, in that process, right? I don't want to call it from beginning to end because that sounds very negative, but any person that can be involved in the process of someone that we talk to, whether it's an adult or a child, but youth particularly, right? Because then we can learn from you. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that doesn't let you do your job properly, right? What is it that you show up in the morning, you read that report and you go, oh, you know, why are they doing this? And if we can fix that at the beginning, right, or try to do a better job at the beginning, then it flows a little bit better. And then at the end, that person, in this case, the youth, is going to have hopefully a better chance of getting the help that he or she needs. I tell you, a lot of times, and I'm not defending anyone, but a lot of times, the person on the ground doing the initial investigation has not been trained properly to do that interview, right? We, you know, at the academy, you know, we go to the academy for 1,100 hours, and I think we spend 2 talking about how to interview youth, right? So, which is not enough, right? So we just need to start thinking about that, and we need a little bit more training. But especially in a setting like when we do fire investigations or when we deal with youth, we just need to stop, prepare ourselves, and then exchange with groups like this so that we learn, you know, what we can do at the beginning. So on that note, I want to thank Scott, because Scott, from the beginning, from when we met, he has always been a huge advocate of doing this and bringing that information back to the task force, bringing that information back to the line so that we can share and we can get involved. So Thank you. But I'm glad I was able to provide a little something. You guys have my contact information and my email. Even though somebody said you're going to put this on YouTube, so maybe I shouldn't have put that on there. But anyway, you have my contact information. If there's anything I can help with or any information or any discussions, feel free to reach out.
I would just like to let everybody know, use Robert's contact info. He is, I'm a little biased, right? Because he's a buddy, but he truly has helped me through tons of stuff. He's very well said. He thinks things through. He's helped me adjust how I do things, hopefully for the better. I think so. Hopefully everybody else thinks so too. And yeah, we'll make sure to get that stuff out. I do, again, want to say thank you because I've been, asking Robert about this, and he takes it very serious, puts a lot of time into it. And, it didn't cost me much at all. So it was perfect.
Yeah, sure. All right. I'm going to let you guys go. I guess you have a meeting. So take care. Best of luck to all of you. Thanks for staying up late in the UK. I know it's a little later there. All right. Talk to you guys later. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So I think there's only two things left. Maybe I know Jenny, you had something you wanted to talk about.
I just wanted to mention the survey that I put into the chat. So if you haven't gotten to that, please, I don't want to force it, but getting the information is just great for statistics, and it increases our credibility as a group to see where everybody's from, what backgrounds we're looking at. Also, as Scott and I continue to try to provide more than just a meeting, but training, it would help us to understand what everybody's kind of looking for in that. So I wanted to throw that out there. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm applying for the youth fire setting thing either at the end of October or the second one in December. So if anybody's going to apply, that's when I'm going to try to go. It is the brand new class. So I want to get in there and get that new class so I can adjust how we are teaching in Ohio to the national standards.
Nice.
That's all I had.
I do, again, want to give a plug for that. We'll make sure to get that out. So if you haven't done it before, Stan, I see you have your hand up. Hopefully it's because you want to, match up the dates we'll apply at the NFA.
No, I was looking for that the information regarding that attachment.
Oh yeah, I'll send that out.
Okay, I was looking for. I'm sorry.
Robert sent it. Do you mean the survey that Jenny was talking about?
Yes, yes.
Oh, so could you put that again, Jenny?
Sure can.
Because I think Stan joined a little late. It's how we
Yeah.
do it on the West Coast.
Yeah, not a problem.
Or if you can send it to Scott, send it to me, and I'll send it back to Jenny. No problem.
Can you see the chat, Stan?
I can see the chat. Yeah.
Okay. I will post it in the chat, a link.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know it's late for some of you, not as late as it is for Joanna. I'm happy to stay on if anyone has anything to jaw-jack about, any problems they want to solve today. But if not, I know we stayed longer than normal.
I have an interesting case that I thought I would throw out there.
Ooh, hear it.
Well, I haven't interviewed yet, but I got the referral from the arson investigator. Let me give a little background. It's a home with 4 children, a 12-year-old, a 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Fire started in the closet. They found a candle underneath a bunch of clothes in the closet, and they believe that that's where it was found, or where it started. as the investigator was questioning the family, the 12-year-old immediately said, well, the 3-year-old plays with lighters all the time. So the investigator let it go at that. The investigator literally referred the 3-year-old to me for youth fire setting education. Now, I have not interviewed yet, but am I wrong, do you guys think, in thinking that it was not the 3-year-old who went and got a candle off the top of the dresser and went and found a lighter and lit the candle in the closet? I'm leaning towards it was probably one of the other children. I think that's a lot for a 3-year-old.
I definitely think it's a lot for a 3-year-old. I'm 100% with you on that one.
I mean, I'm not even sure. I've tried to make contact with the family and have not been able to. They're very transient. So I'm hoping that I get to contact them, because there is kind of a fear there that there will be some recidivism if I do not get them the assistance. Thoughts, Joanna?
That this perhaps is our opportunity, that whatever the cause and whoever set it, all 4 children were present. So this is our opportunity to work with all 4 children, and of course in an age appropriate way. So I'd be tempted to see our 3- and 4-year-olds together, and then our 8-year-old and 12-year-old together possibly, or 8-year-old. But for my first thought is, let's approach this as a family. Let's really think, everybody here, because it's not beyond the capabilities of a 3-year-old to play with a lighter. So I think all the possible scenarios are relevant here. It could be our 3-year-old is playing with lighters, and our 12-year-old is also lighting candles, setting fires. So I think this is your golden opportunity, Jenny, to see the whole family has had the fire. That includes the parents. So what's the education for them? And so take the general approach, and then as you get answers, as you get information, think about, next time I'm coming, I'm going to see the 3- and 4-year-old. Next time it's a conversation with the 8-year-old, the 12-year-old. And so that's what I would think, because you almost make me think of what have you and I said throughout this. We're not here to investigate, so we might never know the cause, but what we've got as fact is there was a fire, these children were there, and a 12-year-old saying it's the 3-year-old. Well, even if it isn't, there's clearly lighters present, and that's an issue for all those children. Right. And the parents.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
No, it's and you're right, of course, to be concerned about the lack of contact, who's at risk here. It's those younger children of fatality and serious injury, again, however the cause. So yeah, your radar is up for the right reason. We need to know how this family are, where are they, and when can you get in. And I loved the point made by, sorry, forgive me, Robert, to say, where do we see these children? So maybe this is your family that you see in school, because you might get to see them more easily and in a more structured environment than you would at home.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that. That is something that I may look at, because no matter where they live, they're going to have to go to school. So that may be the in for me.
Murray?
Yeah, Jenny, morning everyone. I've had similar cases like this, and it's basically found out during the interview. You run with what you've got, but you've got that gut feeling that it could be something else, and usually found that running through the interventions and that you get the honest answers that exactly who did it, and then you can work. But I always go in saying, well, if that's what they've said, I'll believe it until knowing of a gut feeling, but no, it's going to be something different. And let's try without interrogating, but it's just doing it nicely, but we're good cops sort of thing, and you'll get the right information.
Thank you, Murray. Thank you.
Hey, Scott. So I have one if we have time for it.
I have plenty of time.
Okay, so we have a young man. He's 25 years old. He's autistic, but he's a high functioning autistic. And he's in a care home. And what we're finding is when he gets frustrated, he goes over and pulls the manual pull station, and staff can't be with him at all times. And so when the engines go out there, they've talked to him, they've kind of explained to him, you know, we can't have you doing that because it's like the kind of the little boy cries wolf type thing. He has a caseworker through the Department of Children's Services, and they've reached out to us asking what we could do. So we went over to meet with him, and just before we actually met with him, the caseworker said that he found out that this young man was in sounds like a residential facility when he was younger. And then if he didn't get in trouble for the week, the reward was he got to pull the fire alarm.
Oh, jeez.
And so now we're dealing with this young man. And like I said, he is autistic, but he's high functioning, but very impulsive. And so we're trying to find ways by which we can get, you know, we've talked to him about, hey, is there someone you can talk to, other avenues for your anger? But it seems like he'll tell us there is, but then he still keeps going over and pulling the pull stations. So I didn't know if anybody has any ideas or suggestions.
So I have a quick suggestion. We had a similar situation and they make the covers. I don't know if they already have them, but they make the covers for the pull station that actually go into alarm when they lift it. And we found that the noise is so piercing that the autistic kids didn't like the sound of the alarm when you actually open the case of the pull station. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good idea because those local alarms from those things are super high pitched and they're run off a battery. So you don't need to usually run any extra electrical for them.
Yeah, that's one thing we did mention to him. And we even thought the ones with break glass maybe might be a deterrent.
I'm working on one at the moment, a 27-year-old boy, exactly the same thing, keeps ringing 000 to make fire calls when he gets anxious. He'll go through the police first, they won't respond. He'll go to the ambulance, they won't respond. And then he goes to the fire brigade and makes a triple call for the fire brigade. So what we've actually set up, because the police weren't dealing with it, the ambulance weren't dealing with it, so it was on my table. So what I actually do is I set up a chart. I don't know how to describe it, but it was basically, is there an injury? Yes, no. And if it was yes, then you can ring 000 for the ambulance. If it was no, do it. If do I need help because it's a criminal offence? Yes, no. If it's yes, then you can. Is there a fire? Yes, no. And we're finding that is actually working. It's a chart that's put on the walls, and the staff work through it with him when he gets anxiety attack that he needs to ring someone. So hopefully that might help in some way.
That's a great idea, Murray.
I think that's brilliant, Murray. I love it. I absolutely adore it, because my reservations with the idea of the alarm, that's so painful. No one will want to activate it, is what happens when it does need to be activated, and are we causing trauma in other residents in the facility, because we know that many people with autism, their senses are heightened. But what I love so much about what you said there, Murray, is what do we know about many people with autism, that it is about rules, routine and repetition. And we've got to unlearn and pick his previous reward of, you do this, you get this. And I think Murray does that brilliantly. That is almost as if, do we present it that, look, when you were younger, these were the rules around this. Now you're older, this is what people of your age do. And I think all that checklist of yes, no, because it's giving rules, it's giving a routine, and the repetition of that comes from the people who work with him. I think, Murray, you've struck gold with that. Absolutely. It'll take time because we're unpicking the learning, but I think that's phenomenal practice.
We have a school in the city I work in, and it's actually really a daycare for autistic, and it ranges from youth to, I think the oldest they have there is like 30, and we've actually just had them remove pull stations, because it was such an issue with them pulling them. So, but they're not high functioning at this place. So that is the difference.
So on the code side of things, sorry. I guess removing the pull stations, they have automatic though. Do they have an automatic alarm system?
Yeah, it's the full smoke.
Okay.
and sprinkled. Actually, they did add some heat detectors also in one room because they have a padded room.
Right.
for-
I hate that, but I know that that happens.
Really, the first time I saw it, I was amazed. So, do you have something else, Murray?
No, my dog just walked in, so he wants breakfast. So yeah.
I understand that. I have 2 dogs on my feet right now because they're like, it's time to go outside. But they know when I have this headset on and I'm sitting in front of the computer that they're not allowed. So they sit on me so I don't forget them because I'm going to.
Forget
No, she's just got up, so it looks like outside and breakfast time. So yeah.
Thank you, Scott. I gotta go. Thank you.
See you, Stan. Great
See you,
seeing
Stan.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
So, like I said, I'm happy to stay on if anybody has anything they want to talk about, but this is a lot later than normal, so I do feel bad.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Awesome. Thank you.